After playing with Orbitals and Tech Trees enabled in the latest development build of Ashes of the Singularity II for a dozen matches versus the AI, from 1v1 all the way to 4v4 matches, I have to say that we are in for a treat with this game once it is completed. Especially because every time I play it, I feel more and more like a general directing armies across an entire war and dropping in squads of commandos behind enemy lines, instead of just being a commander of a single army in a single battle. During this feature and gameplay overview, which is sponsored by the publisher Stardock, I will also give you a rundown of what makes this sequel different from the original game, and talk about how well the army system and procedural map generation work. I have mentioned some of these elements in my previous videos and my interview with the developers from Oxide Games, which you can watch by using the link up here or in the description below. But now, finally, I have footage of Orbitals and Tech Trees in action. And if you're interested to see how it plays in multiplayer, what do you think about a free-for-all match between myself, a low APM veteran, the CEO of Stardock, who is a veteran StarCraft player by the way, and the developers from Oxide Games, some of which were highly competitive Command & Conquer players and who are making this fantastic game. If you would like to see me and maybe some other content creators like Winter Gaming take on these veterans in free-for-all or team matches, let me know down in the comments and I will send them a challenge. And by that I mean my PR people will ask their PR people very politely. Just kidding, I don't have PR people. Now with these new tech trees you can unlock different orbitals and then drop their special cargo from space, letting you pull off some very cool moves in Ashes of the Singularity II, and I have lots of examples to show you from my matches. I was able to drop units deep into enemy territory, destroying their bases and cutting off resource generation. This forced the AI to deploy armies deep into their rear, letting me gain the upper hand at the main fronts. Having bombers or fighter aircraft show up precisely when I needed them at crucial moments of the battle was another great use of orbital drops. And defending a strategic base with a turret dropped from space without waiting for the construction time prevented many unfortunate situations. The one thing that you can notice easily is that these orbitals are activated without any fanfare, no special visual or sound effects. And for me, that is a huge missed opportunity, so I suggested to the developers to add some effects to make bringing these units from orbit actually interesting. I'm thinking something along the lines of Halo's ODST drop pods for infantry, cargo pods for skirmisher vehicles, and huge red hot waves for aircraft like bombers and interceptors as they entered the atmosphere and the sky above the battlefield. As we could read in the comments of my previous video about new RTS games in 2026, players loved the spectacle in RTS games, including me and my son. Of course, this is just some of these orbitals and their functions, as devs are still working on others. As I said, this is a development build of the game, so the tech trees themselves are only half working and not everything is implemented yet. This also means I ran into bugs and technical issues, so be aware of those as you're watching this alpha gameplay footage. And yes, this is still with just one single faction in the game, the United Earth Forces, while we have yet to see the Post-Human Coalition and Substrate factions. I'm guessing they will be slowly shown to us as the marketing campaign revs up, hopefully with me getting a chance to show them to you as that happens. On the other hand, I also have to mention just how devious and incredibly surprising the AI in this game can be as an opponent. I must admit, this was a welcome surprise for such an early game version. For example, I actually lost a 3v3 match when the enemy AIs doubled up against one of my allies and not only punched a hole in his front lines, but also flanked me and drove straight through my territory all the way to my HQ. I was powerless to stop them, and once my HQ was destroyed, I was kicked out of the match feeling as if I got kicked in the groin.
Game over.
In another match, this 1v1, the AI schooled me in the importance of having lots of flag turrets across my territories, or at least several squadrons of interceptor aircraft on air patrol, as he cut across my bases and tried to destroy my HQ with several groups of gunships. These were not isolated incidents, because this AI and the way the game was made are a fertile ground for unexpected moments such as these. And I was playing just on the normal difficulty, mind you. Who knows what tactics and strategies the hard AI has up its digital sleeves. I am almost afraid to try it and see, but I think I will do so just for another video if you want to see more of Ashes 2 in the future. Now let me show you some of these orbitals in action, tell you how they are unlocked from which tech trees and what uses I have found for them. So right now, the United Earth Forces faction has 3 tech trees, which can all be fully researched if the match lasts long enough that you can accumulate enough tech points to do so. But since most matches won't last that long, this means that each time you play, you can have a custom army composition, and in this way the tech system becomes a form of customization for the player's faction and army. This is one great way of increasing replayability and reducing the feeling of doing the same thing over and over again that you can get from many RTS games if there is little variety in what you can do during each match, as in a solved meta. These tech points are gained every time you accumulate enough research to reach the next target level, which goes up in requirements with each new tech point gained. Research, which is actually called Quanta in this game, is generated at research labs, which you can construct in your territories and which take up a building slot. These cost both Durentium and Ellerite to construct and produce a constant income of Quanta. The left tech tree is mostly filled with aircraft unlocks and improvements for them, along with orbitals which drop squadrons of skirmishers, a squadron of fighters, or a lone bomber. But at the very end of it, it also lets you unlock the huge mech unit which is trained at the armory building. These orbitals do come with individual cooldowns, so there is no spamming them or repeating them. You have to be sure when you want to use them and prepared to live with the consequences if you waste them at the wrong place or time. Like for example, how I dropped squads of riflemen right next to an enemy army or a bunch of turrets. These orbitals all have different cooldowns, so while some are 3 minutes long, others have cooldowns set to 4 and 5 minutes. For matches, which can last from 20 to 40 minutes, this cooldown length feels reasonable. Now, the bottom of this tech tree has something called the Godslayer protocol. This seems to be a weapon platform set in space with the destructive power to destroy enemy bases, at least according to the tooltip, as it hasn't been implemented in this version of the game I was playing. The other theses devs left in this version of the game are Project Goliath, a massive tracked mobile base designed to establish and hold forward positions. Almost sounds like something out of Supreme Commander. Then there is the Redoubt, an obliterator cannon, which is apparently a devastating long-range artillery platform with lots of firepower. Beyond All Reason fans are going to be all over this one. I'm very excited to see what these can do in the future, so you can count on me showing these in future videos. Now, as for the balancing of these orbitals, I can already see it is going to be hard to judge what is OP and what is not. A failed drop of infantry or skirmishers into turrets means waiting several minutes to be able to use it again and try to get better use of it. And remember, there is no resource cost for these orbitals. But on the other hand, if you find an undefended territory or 2 or 3 in a row and do it just at the right location, you can cut off entire sections of an enemy's territory from its HQ. This means it loses power and becomes unable to produce resources or units. This power comes from your HQ region and it is distributed through others like a network. Cutting all connections to a region cuts the power, but as soon as just one neighboring territory is back under your control, the isolated territory is back up and running. As you can see from these different examples, a well-used orbital can turn the tide of a match and snowball into a highly effective commando raid into the enemy's backline. If you want to stop these or secure against them, you either have to have turrets built in every territory or an army on standby to retake lost territories. Both of these eat into the resources you would otherwise be spending on the front line and your armies and battles there. This is why I said it is hard to balance these, as they can turn out to be useless for you or deal a huge amount of damage. There is one more thing I have to turn your attention to regarding the tech trees and unlocks, which you might have noticed already in this gameplay. Currently, the tech tree has unlocks which say that they let you construct certain buildings, like the armory or turrets, but the player is able to construct these from the start of any match, meaning the devs didn't lock out many of these buildings as their tech tree says. Otherwise, I would only be able to construct various types of turrets once I unlock them in the middle tech tree, which is mostly about turrets and related turret upgrades. Meaning the last tech tree is the one with many resource generation unlocks and upgrades. Another difference between this gameplay showcase and the previous one I did is that now the supply system is operational, and if you want to have big armies, you have to construct a lot of supply depots across your territories. This makes them another great target for bomber or gunship raids across enemy territory, as if you target and destroy a lot of these, your enemy won't be able to recruit any more units until he rebuilds them. I actually tried this tactic but with a different target in one of my 2v2 matches, when I recruited an army made up of just bomber aircraft and a single drone scout and directed them, mostly manually, to destroy enemy resource collection buildings. What turned out was that bombers are not just slow, but they actually don't do a lot of damage to these buildings in one pass, so it takes multiple passes from multiple bomber aircraft to take down just one resource collector. On one hand, I would like these to be far more devastating to buildings, especially resource collectors, but on the other hand, I am aware this might be too powerful and easy to do. A proper multiplayer match or two would show are these tactics even worth doing, or just going straight for an enemy HQ and bombing it into oblivion. Next, I want to cover some topics and key differences between the first and second game. As you probably know by now, the sequel is going to have 3 factions instead of the original 2, which were the Post-Human Coalition and Substrate factions. The new United Earth Forces faction is a collection of armies from the top military nations across the planet, and that is why their tech and weapons look somewhat contemporary even in the sci-fi theme. The army recruitment system in this game is made to cut down on the micro necessary for unit production and unit control, because you can reinforce armies straight out of their UI. There is no need to go into the recruitment screen unless you have to form up a totally new army which corresponds to the first free control group number once its units are produced. And even if units in an army are destroyed by simply clicking on the checkbox for automatic replenishment, new units will be produced to step in for those you lose in battle. It takes a few matches to actually get used to this kind of a system and armies, but it then becomes a far superior system than control groups for a game at this scale, and especially where macro is more important than micro. The only thing I am missing is more fine control over army composition after creating it, as it becomes difficult to edit the units in an army to reduce the number of a certain type if, for example, you have achieved air superiority and want to reduce the number of fighters in an army for the sake of having more bombers, for example. This is one thing I hope the devs find a way of doing while keeping the actions needed to a minimum. Just like how they found a way to make factories which produce units do so from the ones closest to each army, and not employing factories which are far from the front lines unless there isn't enough production capacity closer to the front. This also eliminates the need to have rally points in the game at all. Another difference between the two games are the Constructor units. In the first one, you actually had to produce and order these around the map, and at the scale of warfare we have in Ashes, that isn't the best way of handling the base building system. Now, in the second game, these construction units, aka the mass 3D printing drones, are always present at each territory's local HQ building, and they construct buildings as soon as you place their blueprints on the ground. They are an actual unit on the battlefield, not just visual elements, so enemies can destroy them and prevent them from building or repairing. A topic some players always ask about and are interested in is, are there actual physics-based ballistics, or is it all just for show and abstract? And in Ashes 2, the devs did go that extra mile and added actual ballistics. So now every weapon and every shot doesn't roll a dice, but actually obeys the laws of physics, making it not just look much better, but feel much more realistic too. Another topic that is near this one is wrecks, and here they are persistent. But the devs have yet to decide if they are going to turn them into salvageable resource or not. I'm hoping they will, as that adds much more depth to battles and forces you to think about, are you just going to feed a superior enemy with your own units and buy time, or try an alternative tactic to turn things around. And if you're wondering about modding, yes, the devs want to make that far more interesting and open this time around. This new version of the Nitrous engine supports deep customization through data and scripting, including UI tweaks, AI behavior and a lot more, especially as it is based on the Lua scripting language. Next, I want to talk about procedural map generation, or random maps as you can also call this feature. Yes, the game does already have and will have even more pre-built maps for different match sizes, but to keep things interesting for a long time and until an actual map editor is added, this feature will allow you to generate new maps and even save their seed numbers to replay them or share them with other players. Here I'm playing on one such map, and while balancing is a major issue with procedural map generation, the game's design is just robust enough that you can actually have a good match on such a map. At least against the AI, because I'm sure human players can find a way to turn any position into a winning one with enough skill and knowledge of the game. This is why I'm sure competitive play will happen exclusively on pre-built maps. This mostly comes down to two factors. First is the location of the two different resources, which are both collected in the same way, but are not needed at the same time during the match. You need lots of Durentium at the start of each match, as it is used for both building construction and unit recruitment for the first few units and buildings at the starting tech level. But later you need more and more Ellerite as the best units needed for recruitment and your research labs needed for construction. Even some top tier turrets require it. If one player doesn't have enough Ellerite just at the right distance from his starting position, he can't progress through the tech tiers properly, while if another one has too much of it, they can't produce buildings and low tier units fast enough and can be overwhelmed with armies made of just huge numbers of low tier units which required only Durentium. The other factor is terrain. Ashes 2 maps are not mostly flat, but neither are they a collection of ramps and hills. They are full of high and low hills, naturally curving terrain, and some clearings and even lakes. This makes them not just hard to navigate for slow units, but can lead to armies getting separated or going around different hills to reach their final destination. If one player is stuck with a huge hill right outside of his HQ building and his first territory, they will have a harder time to expand across the map in that initial and very crucial beginning of the match. Also, if they are attacked from just one side, they will have a hell of a time trying to regroup and return forces which went around a huge hill into another direction. I should probably tell you that currently this game supports up to 8 players in skirmish and multiplayer, and this is due to the peer-to-peer type of multiplayer system used to connect players. But the developers are not just aware of the fact that we as players want bigger team matches and more massive battles, but also that their engine is capable of supporting such massive scale conflicts. So they are actually open to the possibility of setting up servers for online play past 8 players. I think the popularity of Beyond All Reason has shown that there is a market for such games and player numbers, and I'm still waiting to see which publisher and developer combo will be brave enough to come out with a working 100 plus player RTS game in this decade. The tech and hardware are there, as shown by insane efforts from the bar dev team, and those folks are doing it out of my basement garage type of devs. Imagine what a company like Microsoft could do with this idea. There is also Colonizer with up to 30 players, but that one is designed around persistent matches for up to 90 days and not 30 to 60 minute matches. One interesting thing about this game and its development is how confident the publisher and devs seem to be that we are all going to be playing it in 2026. I for one would love to see it released so soon, but until I see the state of the single player campaign, which should be its main selling point for a lot of the RTS gaming community, I can't say with any certainty that it will be released in 2026. They could release some form of early access with all 3 factions for skirmish and multiplayer and release campaigns later, but I feel that is the backwards way of doing things for RTS games. Some games have done so, and we have yet to see their single player campaigns, so I feel that a storytelling campaign is the only way to properly get players, and by that I mean lots of them, into a new game world and then have them stay for skirmish and multiplayer, even if it's just co-op versus AI that they prefer to play. In any case, let me know what you think of this updated gameplay of Ashes of the Singularity II so far, and what ideas for cool orbitals and tech unlocks would you suggest to the developers. I hope to bring you more gameplay features and factions in 2026, and if you haven't seen my interview with the devs, it will be shown here as a card on the screen and link in the description below. Thank you for watching my channel and videos in 2025, and I wish you all a happy new year with lots of gaming.